Hello, welcome to Divine Path. My name is Lilian Ogazi. Now on this show, we teach believers how to navigate the world today using the Word of God as their weapon. Well, today we'll be doing something a little different, something that I believe every Christian woman sitting down right now, just stay glued to the television screen and do not go anywhere because it's something that will definitely interest you. Now, right after the break, we'll get straight into our conversation for the week. Do stay. You're welcome back. This is Divine Path once again, coming to you from Trust TV, and my name is Lilian Ogazi. Now, today, we'll be talking about the Christian woman and her career choices. Now, I know as a Christian woman and you found yourself in, trying to pick a career choice, most of the times you feel like it conflicts with your beliefs and, how you worship God, your beliefs and all of that. So with me today to help us, put us through that path and make us understand, Christian women and their career choices and how to go about it, I have Mrs. Bola Joko Ada. She's a Christian career coach. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Lilian.
It's an honor having you.
Thank you too.
Thank you for being one of the few women that are featured on this show because I can count the number of women we've had and I'm happy we're talking about something that relates directly to women. Now, let's talk about the Christian woman and her career choices now. I would start with using myself as an example.
Okay.
When I started media and then I became a believer, it was a very difficult thing for me, conflicting what I'm getting here and what I'm supposed to do, being a believer and then my career choice. So how do you look at, the life of a Christian woman and the kind of career choices she should make?
Okay, to answer that question right, let us define who a Christian woman is. Right. A Christian woman is a woman who has received Jesus Christ as her personal Lord and Savior. Or as we say, a woman who has given her life to Christ. Right. So if you have given your life to Christ, it goes without saying that you are not actually at the helm of affairs of your life anymore. Right. And that is one thing that differentiates a Christian woman from every other woman in the workplace. You are first a Christian before you are a woman.
Okay.
Actually, you are a Christian woman who was assigned to the marketplace, which is what we call our secular world as it is, corporate world, right? So a Christian woman and her career choices in the marketplace, right? It means that Jesus Christ, being the Lord and Savior of your life, has a say in the choices that you make. He is the determinant factor, actually, of the choices that you make. Referring to the question you asked, using yourself as an example, right? So for you who became a believer after you were in the marketplace, it means that your mindset as a Christian woman now should now change a little. Why? Because you are now assigned. See yourself as a Christian, though you are a woman, and you're in the marketplace, right? So your choices, your actions, the things that you do, how does it reflect on you as a Christian? So that, I believe, should be the first paradigm shift, the mindset which a Christian woman should have in the workplace. That is from that mindset, from that point, that every other decision you make concerning your career, how you relate with your colleagues, everything you do is centered around this perspective.
So how do you build that mindset?
Okay, first of all, right, we need to understand as Christian women, right, that the Word of God, the Bible, though it was written thousands of years ago, God had us in mind. And I know that there are very few women in the Bible in comparison to the men. But the Word of God is complete, right? We have enough examples in the Word of God to guide us in our career. So, as a Christian woman, one of the first things, when you told me about this topic, I wrote down a few things. And there are things to consider when choosing a career as a Christian woman. Number one, prioritizing your relationship with God. We're in a world now where a woman can be anything she wants to be. which is one of the things I love about our generation as it is right now. A woman can be a pilot, a woman can be an astronaut, a chef. There's no judgment, unlike a few years ago when women were restricted, right? So because of that freedom, it is very easy as a woman to just, okay, I can be anything I want to be and dive right in, right? But prioritizing a relationship with God helps you to make a career choice that aligns with your faith, that aligns with God's plan for your life, which is very important. I know that for someone like you, would you believe me if I told you that God knew you were going to be in media?
No, I believe that when some certain things started playing out in my life.
Exactly. So one of the things I would love to say to all Christian women out there is that all the promises of God in the Bible, they are not gender specific. It applies to the men, it applies to the women. For example, Jeremiah chapter 29 verse 11, for I know the thoughts that I think toward you, they are of good and not of evil, to bring you to an expected end. That promise is for you and I. So as a Christian woman, know that God is constantly thinking about you. God is concerned about your career. He supports your career, right? And he is happy to give you everything you need to succeed in your career, if you would ask.
So that points to prioritizing your relationship with God in the first place.
Yes.
So what are the things, or what are the pointers the Christian woman need to know in picking her career choice?
Number two, a Christian woman needs to know the word of God for herself, right? I just talked about the promises of God that are available in the Bible. There are so many areas that I know that Christian women face challenges in the marketplace, in their careers. You have Christian women who are faced with funny kinds of...
we'll get to all of that in detail, okay. Yes. Okay. But now let's talk about the young... most of the times I look at the young girls okay. that are looking at picking career choices.
Okay.
I started media at a very young age. I didn't even have the opportunity of getting to know myself or building a relationship with God or anything. And I was done with school before NYSC was when I got an opportunity and I started working in the media space. And I saw a lot of ups and downs. I saw a lot of things. And then when I became a believer, I gave my life to Christ, I started seeing things differently. Now, at what point do you think young girls miss out in trying to, especially young girls who are believers? I currently have a core member underneath me now who I can see clearly that she's given her life to Christ. We talk a lot about stuff, and I always hear her saying, are you sure I can do this media? It's conflicting with what I believe in. Ma, do you think I can do this? And I don't know what to tell her. So at that point, what would you tell, especially where do you think young girls miss out? Especially young girls who are believers and they don't want what they know to conflict with where they are working or where they intend to work.
Okay, like I said earlier, when I was using your example, you need to trust as a young believer, as a Christian woman starting out a career, that God is mindful of you. And wherever you find yourself at that point in time, like I said, number one, prioritize your relationship with God. Number two, learn to know the voice of God for yourself. God is really big on guiding his children. Why? Because he has a plan for your life. So as a young Christian woman, you need to know the voice of God for yourself, because I believe that in your workplace, in the marketplace, sometimes you feel a strong urge to just go in this direction. If you have practiced knowing the voice of God for yourself, you know that, okay, this is God leading me in this direction. And a lot of women I know have found themselves at the peak of their careers, following this voice, following these nudges, one day at a time, one step at a time. You will not get the full picture of everything concerning your career. That's just the truth. That's the way our God works. If you look through the Bible, you see different examples. David was anointed as king, but he actually didn't become king as we know him until about 13 years later. So God enjoys, see the children of Israel as well, through the wilderness before they got through the process. So God enjoys taking us through processes, right? And we need to be open to those processes, because those processes help to shape who we become in the end. So knowing your voice, knowing the voice of God is another thing a Christian woman should know. Being bold. I would like to use a woman in the Bible who is not very popular, from the book of Judges 4. Her name is Jael. She was the woman who God used to secure Israel's victory in a time of battle we all know as the woman who drove a peg through a man's head. If you go to the book of Judges 4, you can read the whole story. But one of the things that amazes me, that interests me about this woman, is that she knew how to seize opportunity. We don't talk a lot about her, but I am, let me say, intrigued by her heart, by her courage, her boldness, her strength. In the marketplace, in the workplace, Christian women need to be bolder. We need to be able to see opportunities. Sometimes God is even actually nudging us. But for some reason, some people are laid back. So as a young woman, that's courage. Courage is the currency of greatness, like I heard someone say. So it's one of the things that Christian women need. You need to be courageous. You need to be bold. You serve the living God. Nothing is impossible before you. So when you do your tasks, whether you're an intern, you're an assistant, you are a fresher looking to rise up in the ranks, be courageous, be bold. Look at opportunities and grab them. Your boss comes and says, oh, I think we'd like to do this, we'd like to do this. You have an idea. God has probably even told you about it. But you kept quiet because you felt, oh, I'm young. Oh, I'm this. No. Paul gave an admonishment to Timothy. If you look through the book of Timothy, and said, don't let anybody despise your youth. Being young in the marketplace is important. It's wonderful. I mean, you can do things, you can see things the way other people don't see them, right? So your perspective is unique. Your perspective is needed. You are valuable to God, right? So you need to be bold to seize opportunities that will later determine your career growth and many other decisions in life.
You know, that talking about that part of being bold and being young in the workforce is actually an advantage, because starting out young, I was probably a little bit shy. And then at some point, in less than a year or two, I learned how to speak up, take opportunities when they come, say I can do things even if I know that, okay, I have seen them do it, but I'm not sure I can do it, but I'm sure I can learn on the job and get it done. So those are the kind of opportunities I always advise them to go forward for. But let's talk about you briefly.
Okay.
Now, a Christian career coach. What inspired that line for you?
Okay. Well, I am a trained accountant. I have over a decade of experience as an accountant. And a few years ago, about 3 years ago, I began to have this desire that I wanted more out of my life. I had a good 9-to-5 job. I have 2 boys. So many times I have meetings, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And I just basically knew that it was time for me to do something different with my life, which was quite difficult because everybody's like, oh, you're such a good accountant, you're such a this, you're such a that. But at that point, I felt like God was leading me in a different direction. So I made the move to transition into tech. So when I made that move, I successfully made the move. I did some trainings and I became a tech project manager. So I began to have the nudge, and when I began to pray about it, the Lord began to tell me it's time to help other women who are feeling stuck at different points of their careers. Some women have actually had a successful run in a particular career, and they are just stuck. They feel like it's time to just do something different, but they don't know how to, because in a way, that career has become their identity. There's also another class of women who are looking to start out, and they don't know where to begin. Okay, I studied this, but okay, I got a job as this. How do I marry the two? Some people come from different families and backgrounds. Okay, the family business is this. So I went to school and, okay, maybe you have a law. They came from a family where they are all lawyers. So they went to school and studied law, and they came out and they don't actually feel like God wanted them to be lawyers. So different women in different places. So the Lord began to speak to me about Christian women and his plan for them. And I started writing articles on LinkedIn. That was how I actually started. My plan was to write these articles so that Christian women can actually just read them and receive the wisdom, the courage, the strength, the motivation to do those things that were in their hearts to do. I found out that also there are also Christian women who are successful in their careers, but were not understanding to other Christian women. That's also something I've noticed with we Christians. Yes, God has helped you, but we need to appreciate the fact that time and chance happen to everybody. You graduated with the first class. Your friend or your colleague or course member also graduated with a first class. You got a job with a good audit firm, for instance, maybe the Big Five. This other person got a job as a teacher. So when you meet at the meeting, maybe your old schools association, you look at this person and like, oh, this person is not succeeding the way I'm succeeding because they didn't get a job. No. As Christians, we need to understand that God's plans are not our plans. This teacher who has a first class or a 2-1, for instance, may have impacted the lives of over hundreds of children who will maybe in another 20 years become governors, presidents, right? Maybe that was the plan of God for her life. She did great in school. She graduated. Do you understand? So I discovered that all these different things, God began to open my eyes to all of this. So I began to write, basically. And as I began to write, I discovered that I didn't like it, sincerely speaking. I didn't like it. I didn't want to come out. I felt like I was not qualified enough. I felt like there were other women who had accomplished more, who God would have used to differently, or to probably do this, right? But God began to strengthen my heart. He put people around me. I spoke to my pastors, and it made me understand that the knowledge, the experience you have enough, you are the right person for this job. And I began to speak to young people. And sincerely, as I started my career coaching, since I've started my career coaching, I mean, I've helped women and men even, actually. Some have gone on to better jobs. Some have picked up careers. Some have picked up long lost dreams.
Okay.
Yes, things they've wanted to do, but they felt like, oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, I need to do this, this, and this before I can start this.
Okay, we'll hold the thoughts on that now.
Okay.
You know, this is giving a lot of questions, but we're going to get to that right
Okay.
after the break. And we're also going to talk about common challenges Christian women faced and you faced
Okay.
the period of your career where you had your career going on and you decided to divert, the challenges you faced, how you overcame them, and common challenges you think Christian women faced. Well, do not go anywhere. That will be the lineup of our next conversation right after the break. Do stay. You're welcome back. This is still Divine Path coming to you from Trust TV. My name is Lilian Ogazi, and with me I have Mrs. Bola Joko Ada, a Christian career coach, and we've been talking about Christian women and, you know, their career choices, achieving their career choices and picking out career choices for themselves. Thank you so much for staying with us.
Thank you.
It's actually been a very interesting episode so far. You've missed, but don't worry, there's still time. Now, before we left off, we're talking about you and how you felt the nudge towards your career. And the fact that you were an accountant for years, I could understand with this being in a series of meetings and having kids. I spoke with a journalist one time and she said the husband used to bring her baby to the office for her to nurse and take the baby back when she's doing the all-night news.
Wow.
I'm like, nah, I don't think I'll do that. No, to be very honest, I might, I don't know. Maybe the passion for the job will let me. But we find out that women hold themselves back a lot when it comes to picking out career choices, especially with the fact that, you know, they'll refer back to the Bible on who a woman should be and how she should take care of her family and, you know, the virtuous woman, and they see their career or wanting to pick a career choice as a hindrance for them to be this woman the Bible has described. Do you think that's a misconception that is holding women back?
Yes, actually, I believe that's a very big misconception that Christian women have. The Bible supports career women. If you look through the Bible, we have so many examples. Esther was a queen, right? That couldn't have been easy. Many people just think, oh, probably she just dresses up and goes around holding parties, even holding parties, throwing parties. It's stressful. You have Sarah, whose husband had 300,000 trained soldiers in his home. If you remember when Abraham went to rescue Lot, he went with trained soldiers. Who was feeding those soldiers? Who was ensuring that everything was done day to day in the house? It obviously wasn't Abraham. It was Sarah. So you have Dorcas in the New Testament. So there are so many women. If we would only take time to actually read about those women and be inspired by them. There are so many limiting factors in truth, but I would not want us to see them as limiting. A man is different from a woman. It's not a competition, right? We are different. And that difference is your strength. Yes, we control the home front. We take care of the family. It's important. When making a choice of career, for instance, for the young women, your choice of a spouse is important, right? If you know that you are a career woman, you are driven by achieving things. You want to do this, you know the kind of person you are. When making a choice of a spouse, please be mindful of that. You cannot be a firecracker and then you also want to marry a firecracker. In some cases and scenarios it works, but more often than not it doesn't. Why? Because you're supposed to complement each other. Right? So for a Christian woman, yes, your choice of a spouse matters. The leading of the Holy Spirit when choosing a career also matters. In Nigeria, for example, many people go to school and study certain courses. Eventually, they find themselves doing a totally different thing, right? Make sure that as a Christian woman, you have settled this in your place of prayer, in your place of communion with God. It is very important. Christian women need to be open to new things. A lot of people who have succeeded in transitioning into different careers, building bigger businesses, they were open. We need to be open to learning, even in the workplace. One of the issues I've had with Christian women is the issue of tech literacy. A woman can pray. She can sit down here and pray for the next 3 hours. But ask her to come and polish her skills in Excel, she will not come. So at the end of the day, they pass you up for a promotion and you're wondering what happened. Prayer is good, right? We are praying women. We are women who understand the word of God. But we are also women who are quick to learn. We are quick to take up learning opportunities. See how we can be better at our jobs. When Sarah and Abraham started, it was only 2 of them with Lot. By the time Isaac was coming in, Abraham was a big man. Let's put it the way we put it in Nigeria. They had thousands of mouths to feed. So what Sarah was doing in the beginning was not what she was doing later. All right? Esther came from a very humble background with Mordecai. Being queen was totally different. You had to hold parties for ambassadors, for diplomats, making sure that the cutlery was properly set. So it was a different, but I believe these women kept on learning.
I want to start with you.
Okay.
Probably, people relate a lot to personal examples, not just, oh, this is what she's saying. Did she actually go through it?
Okay.
Now, you said you were an accountant for over a decade. What were those challenges you experienced that shook your faith to an extent? And how did you overcome it?
One of my major challenges, I would say, was lack of wisdom. I started my career, well, not too young. I was about, I left, by the time I finished serving, I was about 26, 27. So I got a job after that as an accountant, and I've worked in different places as an accountant over the years. But one of my major challenges was lack of wisdom, looking back now. When I started working, I didn't really understand the core of who I was, right? I just felt like, oh, this is the corporate atmosphere. Let's do this, right? There were those little tips, those little habits, those little nudges that I feel I let go of, right? Yes, I pray. I am a praying woman, right? I'm a driven woman. I really am. But I've discovered that praying is important, but walking in wisdom is also very important. I remember one of the times when one of the places where I was working, I worked with a lot of Christians. I've had that luck. I've not really worked with Muslims or other religions per se, though I tend to meet them, and it's not really an issue, it's not a problem. But when you are faced with, let me say, the challenge of working with people, right? There are people who don't have the same mindset as you do. That you were hired to do a job does not mean that everybody is happy with you doing the job. You can imagine, as an accountant, I've had cases where I had to slash people's salaries.
Oh, yeah.
As a management executive, I've made decisions where I've had to fire people. I've made decisions where I've had to hire people. I've made decisions where I've had to oversee certain projects and make sure things were done in a certain way, which didn't go down well with another group of people. So looking back now, one of the things I would have done was actually applied a little more wisdom. I would have asked God to give me a little more wisdom in actually relating or in the course of executing my duties, not to be wise when interacting with people, so that you don't offend people, and when the time comes for you to do something for them or to preach the gospel, they now look at you and like, was it you that they look at you with that kind of and like
very judgy eyes.
They're judgy eyes as per, and you call yourself a Christian, right? Yes, you are a Christian. You have a job to do.
Yeah, but I believe it's a thin line between being a Christian and being a principled person, which is where I don't think believers actually see, because they say, oh, this person is not acting like a Christian, but this person is probably just principled.
Yes, you can be principled, but there's a wise way to do things, which was one of the things I later learned. You can't be principled. And I believe in standing up for your principles. In fact, I don't believe that you can be a Christian without having principles. It comes with the life of being a Christian.
So what do you do at that point where, you know, your principles, you feel like being a principled person and being a Christian, even as a woman, because there's always this notion that if it's a woman that is the boss, then there's a problem, that she's naturally wicked. So at that point, what do you do, especially, you know, and then, so like you said, you don't chase away people whom you're trying to turn to God.
Okay, let me open the scripture. Philippians 4 verse 6, the Passion Translation. So I'll just read it very quickly. Don't be pulled in different directions or worried about a thing. Be saturated in prayer throughout each day, offering your faith-filled requests before God with overflowing gratitude. Tell Him every detail of your life. Then God's wonderful peace that transcends human understanding will guard your heart and mind through Jesus Christ. Philippians chapter 4 verse 6 in the Passion Translation. Tell Him every detail of your life. And then God's wonderful peace. Many times as Christians, when you take decisions in the marketplace, right, we need to be able to pray about everything. And once you have that sense of peace, go ahead with it.
All right. Well, we've come to the end, unfortunately. I know we'll have lots of questions, and I believe our next session will probably throw a bit more light on this briefly. But having said that, thank you so much for joining us. It's actually been a very interesting episode. And to our listeners and viewers out there, thank you so much for joining us. If you do have questions, please do well to send it to us via the social media handles shown on your screen right now, and definitely we'll respond and get back to you. Have a lovely Sunday. My name is Lilian Ogazi.